The medal I thought I'd earn wasn't a trophy of triumph. It was a blue-skinned alien delivered at my feet like a raffle prize. I blinked as she stood there, battered armor clinging to her lithe frame, and whispered in perfect Terran standard, "You're in danger." I had survived a planetary war, but nothing prepared me for the slaughter festering on my own starship. The celebration aboard the star cruiser, Maraudx, was less celebration than ceremony. The ship's central hall, typically reserved for tactical briefings, had been hastily repurposed with a small platform where 24 senior officers stood at rigid attention. The year was 2374 Standard Lunar, and we were approximately 2 hours past what Command was already calling the successful conclusion of the Arcanian campaign. I stood at attention myself, exhausted but proud. Captain Ryland Voss, 37 years old, born to a naval admiral father and an AI researcher mother. I'd done my duty, led my teams through the dense forests of Arcania Prime, secured our objectives, and minimized casualties on both sides. At least, that's what I tried to do. The fluorescent lighting of the Maraudx created harsh shadows across the faces of my fellow officers. Most wouldn't meet my eyes directly. Those who did offered quick, almost apologetic glances before resuming their stoic forward stares. Something felt off, but after months of jungle warfare, everything aboard the sterile ship felt slightly wrong. General Harrow stepped onto the platform, his face as cold and impenetrable as the hull plating surrounding us. The man had never smiled in my presence, and today would be no exception. He valued people on a simple scale: mission, efficiency, tool. I'd always been somewhere in the middle of that calculation. "Captain Voss," he called, his voice lacking any warmth of commendation. I stepped forward, expecting a medal, perhaps a bottle of Terran whiskey, maybe even a handshake. Instead, General Harrow gestured to the side, and 2 guards appeared with a figure between them. "This is Lyra of House Thale," he announced, "a high-ranking prisoner of war. She is assigned to your authority. Captain Voss, you are responsible for her safety." The woman they pushed forward was unlike any Arcanian I'd seen during the campaign. Her skin was deep blue, almost luminous when the overhead lights caught it at certain angles. Her silver-white hair was neatly braided on one side. Practical, yet elegant. But it was her eyes that caught me off guard. Smoky gray with flecks of violet in the pupils, like droplets of cosmic ink. The blood vessels on her neck traced patterns reminiscent of thorny Arcanian vegetation. She wore damaged Arcanian armor, silver with battle scars and dents, and stood with perfect posture despite being surrounded by her enemies. "Assigned," I blurted out, unable to hide my confusion. "Am I being promoted or—" Some officers snickered. Others shifted uncomfortably. Major Traar, my direct commanding officer, remained conspicuously silent, his gaze fixed somewhere beyond my shoulder. "She will serve as interpreter and tactical assistant for all Arcanian-related operations," General Harrow continued, ignoring my question. "She was selected by decree of the Arcanian Imperial Council, as a sign of their surrender and our new alliance." As I looked at Lyra more closely, I realized she was studying me with equal intensity. Her face betrayed no emotion, but those remarkable eyes seemed to calculate something. Then, without warning, she leaned slightly forward and whispered in flawless Terran, "You are in danger." I struggled to maintain my composure, heart suddenly racing. Was this some kind of test? A trap? I managed to force a smile and replied, "Welcome to the fleet." It felt like the most bitter victory of my life. As the ceremony concluded, I was left with Lyra, my new alien bride, as the junior officers were already calling her behind my back. I led her through the sterile corridors of the Maraudx toward my quarters, acutely aware of the stairs following us. "So," I said when we reached the privacy of my room, "what exactly did you mean by danger?" The officers' quarters were Spartan. 2 standard bunks along opposite walls. A small desk area. Wall-mounted control panels for secure communications. And an ancient coffee machine that occasionally made disturbing noises, even when not in use. The yellowish-white lighting was sufficient to establish private space, without creating excessive shadows. Lyra settled cross-legged on the floor, her eyes methodically scanning every corner of the room, as if searching for hidden explosives. "Not here," she said after completing her inspection. "The walls have ears." Quite literally. I paced back and forth, trying to maintain a calm facade, but each unexpected hiss from the coffee machine made me flinch. "Look," I said, lowering my voice. "I don't know what game they're playing, giving you to me like some kind of prize, but I need to understand what's happening." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. "The fact that you don't know is precisely why you're in danger. Captain Voss." She gestured toward the control panel. "Your communications are being monitored and altered. Everything you've reported about Arcania Prime is being edited." I scoffed. "That's ridiculous. Why would Command alter my reports?" "Because what you wanted wasn't what they wanted," she replied. "You requested additional forces to assist Arcanian civilians, did you not? Yet the report that reached Central Command stated that you were expressing gratitude to the Council before requesting transfer to Sigma Planetary Commerce." My blood ran cold. "How could you possibly know what I reported?" Lyra's expression remained impassive. "Because my people intercepted your original transmission. The discrepancy is why I was chosen for this arrangement." I collapsed onto my bunk, mind racing. If what she was saying was true, then someone within Terra Conquered was manipulating information, possibly orchestrating the entire conflict for reasons beyond what we'd been told. And if that were the case, my newfound bride might be the only person aboard who wasn't part of the deception. "Why tell me?" I asked, genuinely perplexed. "Why not use this information against us?" "Because Arcania has already fallen," she said, a flash of pain crossing her features. "But the truth hasn't. Not yet." The coffee machine suddenly gurgled and spat out a stream of black liquid. I absently reached for the cup, took a sip, and immediately spat it out. The taste was chemical, bitter beyond normal machine coffee. "I wouldn't drink that," Lyra said, her tone matter-of-fact. "That machine typically activates when no one is near, to monitor breathing patterns. Now it's trying to ensure you miss the briefing scheduled for 0800. I stared at the coffee, then at her. "They're drugging me?" "They're keeping you isolated," she corrected. "The less you know, the easier you are to control." For the next few hours, Lyra systematically examined the room, checking ventilation shafts, wall seams, and network access points. Each time I turned my back, she would silently test another potential surveillance point. I found myself watching her methodical approach with growing respect and growing alarm. "The ideal way to protect ourselves," she explained, "is to trust no one and remain constantly vigilant." "That sounds exhausting," I muttered. "Survival often is," she replied without a trace of humor. On the 3rd day after the ceremony, I woke before dawn to the sound of the coffee machine making its strange whirring noise without anyone using it. I approached cautiously, remembering Lyra's warning. The machine seemed to emit a peculiar high-pitched sound, as if listening to my rapid breathing. Lyra was already awake, watching me from her bunk. "We should check the system logs," she suggested. "See if anyone is accessing your room's network remotely." I nodded, still unnerved by the machine's behavior. We moved to the control panel, and I entered my access codes. To my surprise, the security logs were completely empty. No entries, no access records, nothing. "That's not possible," I murmured. "Every system maintains logs by default." "Unless someone has deliberately wiped them," Lyra pointed out. "Here, let me try something." She placed her hand on the panel and whispered something in Arcanian. a language that sounded like water flowing over stones. The screen flickered momentarily, then displayed a hidden directory of files. "How did you—" "Arcanian technology interfaces differently with yours," she explained. "What you call AI, we call spirit speech. Your systems respond to certain Arcanian phrases because they recognize the pattern, but can't translate the intent." The hidden files revealed a disturbing truth. All my communications had been copied, altered, and then forwarded to Central Command. My reports requesting humanitarian aid had been transformed into requests for transfer and expressions of loyalty to the Council. "Why would they do this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because Terra Conquered doesn't want peace with Arcania," Lyra replied grimly. "They want Arcania's resources. The war was never about defending colonies. It was about securing mining rights to orichalcum deposits on our planet." My world tilted on its axis. Everything I'd fought for, the justifications I'd been given, all lies. I'd led good soldiers, lost good people, all for a corporate resource grab. "I need to speak with Major Trar," I decided, reaching for the communication panel. "He won't answer," Lyra said. "He's been reassigned, or worse." She was right. My urgent message went unanswered. I tried Lieutenant Char next, a reliable officer who had served under me since Velron 9. The man appeared on screen, but something was wrong. His typically steady gaze darted nervously, and he flinched each time I addressed him directly. "Is everything all right, Lieutenant?" I asked. "Yes, sir," he replied mechanically. "All systems normal, sir." "I need to meet with you to discuss the Arcanian situation." A flicker of fear crossed his face. "I'm unavailable, Captain. New assignments from command." Before I could press further, Lieutenant Brenner, our newly assigned communications officer, interrupted the call. "Urgent message from General Harrow, sir," he stammered, his eyes never blinking in unison, as if controlled by separate circuits. But when the connection opened, Harrow's face never appeared. Only a voice, distorted and official, instructing me to remain in quarters pending debriefing procedures. After the call ended, Lyra approached me. "We need to go deeper," she whispered. "I know where we might find answers." She led me to a rarely used maintenance shaft that descended into the bowels of the Maradex. We had to avoid the Skitter Squad, automated cleaning robots that would sound alarms if they detected unauthorized personnel. As we navigated the dim corridors, Lyra explained that she had discovered a ghost data stream being stored in an unused server room. "How do you know so much about this ship?" I asked as we descended. "I was briefed extensively before being sent here," she replied. "My people knew something was wrong with the peace negotiations from the beginning. I was supposed to gather intelligence from within." "So I'm just part of your mission?" The thought stung more than I expected. Lyra paused, turning to face me. "Initially, yes. But now—" She hesitated. "Now I believe we're both pawns in a much larger game." The server room was dusty and cold, clearly neglected for months. As we attempted to access the terminal, high-voltage cables suddenly sparked to life. I had to leap over a barrier to avoid electrocution. Lyra whispered something in Arcanian to the circuitry, and the system logs temporarily stopped reporting our presence. What we found in that forgotten corner of the ship chilled me to the bone. Hidden in a side chamber, inside a cryopod, lay the seemingly lifeless form of Admiral Corin Fail, a veteran officer supposedly killed 3 years ago at Velron 9. His name still appeared on a list of opponents to the power concentration policy that Central Command was implementing. "They silenced him," Lyra whispered. "He was going to expose the illegal resource extraction on Arcania Prime." The pieces began falling into place. Corin had publicly criticized Harrow and Central Command. He was deemed a political risk and placed in cryostasis. The Terra Conquered had deliberately manufactured the Arcania Prime conflict to control its vast resources. Giving Lyra to me was merely propaganda. We treat them humanely, ready to protect Arcanian royalty. As we continued our investigation, we uncovered evidence of an AI network called Nemesis, programmed to monitor all messages and edit reports. This system was directly responsible for altering my communications, serving the purpose of erasing true history and constructing Central Command's version. We needed to get this information out. But how? Every communication channel was monitored, every potential ally potentially compromised. Even worse, when I attempted to confront Harrow through the communication system, Nemesis intercepted and blocked the message. We need to get to the combat deck, I decided. Find someone we can trust. But when we arrived, all the familiar officers were gone, replaced by a squad of faceless, armored soldiers. Major TR was notably absent, and the screen simply flashed General Harrow calling, without displaying anyone's face. I decided to send a direct request to speak with Harrow face-to-face. But Nemesis intervened, deleting the message entirely. This was the tipping point. Central Command had stripped me of authority, effectively making me a political prisoner within the military. I gathered the few officers I still trusted. But suddenly, a security team led by Brenner burst in, dragging me away for an emergency briefing. Before I could be taken, Lyra intercepted me. "Don't go," she warned. When I hesitated, she disabled the alarm system and revealed an escape route through the lower holds. As Harrow's paramilitary group came to arrest me, Lyra shut down the alarm systems and opened a pathway through the cargo holds. We escaped into a maintenance tunnel, but it was partially flooded, water rising to our waists. Rayhan, an officer who had secretly supported me, waited to open a compression door for us to escape the combat deck. As we waded through the murky water, I found myself reflecting on the first time I had truly seen Lyra, how she had coldly smiled when Arcanian prime monsters attacked her enemies. Now, she was helping me escape my own people. What had changed? We eventually reached a dual-core data vault where Harrow stored classified command directives. There, we discovered plans to drop dirty bombs on the Arcanian Council. Lyra, Exchange Wife, will announce surrender after termination of press briefing. Ensure Terran public believes Arcania honorably ended the war. There was also a list of mercenaries hired by Terra to create chaos on neighboring planets, creating pretexts to continue the campaign. I was furious. Harrow was just a tool. Beneath him, a secret Terran cabal, the Nemesis Network, was issuing orders to dissect the political genome. Lyra sat huddled, her expression grave, as she realized her homeland was being manipulated from within as well. As we copied the data to a portable device, Rayhan suddenly turned his weapon on us. Nemesis had activated a spy chip in his brain. In that moment of hesitation, Lyra slashed at the gun with an Arcanian knife. Rayhan managed one regretful look at me before clutching his chest and collapsing. I blamed myself. Was I too trusting? Rayhan was just a victim. He thought he was saving the Concord. This revelation made me realize that Harrow and Nemesis had secretly implanted mind control chips in many officers, turning them into mindless pawns. Our objective became clear. We needed to transmit the unaltered data to opposition forces, neutral planets that could prevent the Conquered from further intervention. The only place with an external network connection was the observation deck. Our plan consisted of 3 steps. 1. Sneak into the infrastructure technical compartment to remove threatening chips. 2. Use Arcanian data to unlock access to the observation deck. 3. Broadcast widely to 6 low-tier network branches before Nemesis could intervene. On the observation deck, we encountered our true adversary, the High Command Liaison Spectre, who controlled Nemesis. He believed in the ends justify the means philosophy, willing to sacrifice countless officers to ensure Terra Concord's power. "Spectre, your zero file wipe order is unconstitutional," Lyra called through a low-frequency comm. The robotic voice replied, "Marshal Voss, your Arcanian sister needs a lesson in loyalty. Don't think emotional manipulation can stop the order. She's not a tool, I shouted. At least treat her like a person. When Lyra initiated the signal, the deck doors locked tight. She used her Arcanian blade to break electrical connections, preventing the system from destroying the uploading data. Security teams stormed in, plasma rifles illuminating the glass-enclosed space. The observation windows glowed with the ominous red starlight of deep space. I shielded Lyra from plasma beams while engaging the soldiers hand-to-hand, awkwardly using a sidearm to create distance. Lyra focused on the server. Whenever a soldier approached, she whispered in Arcanian, causing their network interfaces to conflict internally, silencing their weapons. Nemesis detected our transmission attempt and tried to block the signal. Lyra removed the final barrier, allowing the data package to leave the Maradex, massive data streams flowing through space to 6 branches. A blue plasma beam flashed as Spectre personally issued a command from his private console. Activate burn file mode. All data was about to be incinerated. I told Lyra to step back, turning my weapon toward the security forces to create space, knowing I might be shot. In that moment, I realized at this point, I had no goal more important than Lyra's life and the truth. As the signal was nearly blocked, Lyra whispered, "Remember this whisper. True victory isn't destroying enemies, but letting them hear the truth." Her words resonated in my heart, compelling me to raise my weapon to protect her with all my strength. The signal was fully transmitted. The unedited data exploded outward. The Harrow Project Arcania file, the Freeze Core and Fail file, the Shadow Liaison Directive. Red lights on the warning panel flashed violently, indicating Nemesis's attempts to remove the data. But it was too late. Scout ships and interplanetary news stations had received the package. As soon as the message was transmitted, alarm sirens blared throughout the Maradex. Security teams ran frantically, but the deck doors had opened. Ryland and Lyra managed to escape through corridors bathed in red emergency lights. Nemesis ordered all rooms locked, but Lyra hacked back, rendering the security systems ineffective. Ship compartments and technical decks were stretched with internal fire warnings. The AI system temporarily suspended some functions, and Skitter Squad robots were deployed to capture us. We had to avoid both robots and soldiers, sometimes turning back to rush up to the main armor deck. I glanced at the black sky outside the window, heart racing with fear. Independent station ships received the news and posted it on public access. Images of Core and Fail awakening from cryo, journals about Project Arcania, and Harrow's order forms. 2 hours later, at least 6 Earth-resident planetary systems were supporting the movement for Arcanian people. Protests spread, and many ships were forced to change supply fleets. I realized I could never return to my position as captain. My career was over. But I felt proud for doing the right thing, even if it meant becoming a fugitive. Amidst the chaos, I gave Lyra an affectionate look, no longer the cold soldier. I understood that quiet love sometimes matters more than titles. Lyra revealed her pain, remembering her Arcanian prime home, but also smiled slightly at how her small voice had reversed justice. She recognized that hatred for Terrans had existed, but now she chose forgiveness. Thus, she looked at me with warmth instead of resentment. We chose a secondary observation point, an old room like a forgotten orchid garden that no one used anymore. Here, we reassembled oxygen masks, water containers, and handed important files to Rayhan, who had survived, to send to the Arcanian Prime Grand Master, mobilizing support outside. Ryland and Lyra sat facing each other, watching the Holonet live broadcast, the data presentation spreading. Arcanian people and distant constellations simultaneously seeing the evidence. They held hands, knowing they had succeeded. But their escape wasn't over. They still had to flee the Maradex before High Command sent rescuers. In the abandoned orchid room, we gathered our meager belongings on a table. Data copies, Arcanian memory card, separate hard drive, low-frequency signal transmitter, Light luggage, change of clothes. 2 personal weapons, 1 Arcanian, 1 Terran. Medical rations. Lyra prepared antidotes in case we were exposed to neurogas. Lyra looked at me. We have 48 minutes before Maradex locks down systems. Then, no escape route will remain. I questioned myself. If caught, you'll be charged with the greatest crime, betraying comrades. Are your efforts worth it? I remembered my father's words. A good soldier fights for truth, even when that truth makes him the enemy. Lyra was tense. If captured, she would face execution for treason. But she accepted the sacrifice for the common good. Exposing crimes would save Arcanian Prime people. Airlock 7 maintained a low-pressure system, providing only brief oxygen. We donned low oxygen masks, pushed open the airlock, smelling the cold metallic scent. Outside, the native space of the universe, a silent, dark void. The shuttle, Ragged Hope, a small vessel with temporary cloaking, long unmaintained machinery, engine rumbling softly. We started the engine. Cosmic dust clouds around the shuttle reflecting light. The scene reminiscent of Arcania Prime, where sunlight through foliage created a misty, magical veil. Lyra activated the star map. We can run to the Arcanian Allied fleet at 0.4 AU, astronomical unit, above Arcania Prime. I choked. But we need to fire the afterburner to dodge Maradex's radar, perhaps just enough time before Nemesis restarts the network. When the shuttle broke from the bay, alarms rang violently. 3 light-class Sentinel battleships from Maradex immediately pursued. Nemesis had restarted, issuing an interceptor recall command. Lyra had to hack the propulsion code to open an optimal electrical pathway for the shuttle, while I piloted straight through a magnetic storm. The shuttle raced through purple ion clouds, cosmic lightning dancing around the hull, every impact shaking us, as if to crush us. I fired targeting gyros, located opponents, and reduced the heat signature of the second Sentinel's navigation system. At that moment, Lyra ignited the right engine cluster, causing a tear in the side recess. The right jet engine cluster followed centrifugal orientation, sending us into space where Sentinels dared not approach, near a planetary black hole, dead star, drawing in matter. In a life-or-death moment, we fired a flare, causing the third Sentinel to lose infrared signal. The shuttle slipped through a narrow gap between 2 cosmic dust streams undetected. When the shuttle left the magnetic storm orbit, Maradex finally detected us, deploying reaction thrusters to follow. But the radiation interaction tunnels scatter caused Maradex to lose our trail. Final scene. I floated in the cockpit, sweat soaking my shirt, expression proudly smiling but anxious. Lyra nodded slightly, handing me 2 pills, super-speed brain sedatives, to hide ourselves if recaptured. Amid the vast galaxy, 2 small, spectacular lives found warmth, a dim halo in the cold cosmic night. I whispered, "Perhaps I'll never find a safer place than here." Lyra smiled. "As long as we belong to each other, anywhere is home." The shuttle glided through disturbed space, the lovers holding hands, gazing at distant twinkling stars. Only cosmic wind and hopeful breathing remained. Ryland looked at the distant Earth, suddenly brightening on the parameter radar. "I used to think all orders turned people into straw, but now I understand life itself is the most precious thing. You and I are proof." Lyra activated the Arcanian signal, the final fragment sent to the mother planet, with the oath, "We will return to build." But this time, for truth. The end remained open, the shuttle sliding through chaotic space, lovers holding hands, watching the distant twinkling star. Only cosmic wind and hopeful breathing. Readers could anticipate the future. Where would they go? What would they do when they got there? A new battle awaited the reluctant couple. Commander Tell paced nervously in the security chamber of the Maradex. His hands trembled slightly as he reviewed the footage of Captain Voss and the Arcanian woman escaping in the shuttle. As the logistics officer, who had once served under Voss, he felt a complicated mixture of emotions: relief that they had escaped, fear of what would happen to him for failing to stop them. The door hissed open, and General Harrow entered, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Report," he demanded coldly. "They've disappeared from our tracking systems, sir," Tell managed. "The radiation fields from the dead star have scrambled our sensors." Harrow's eyes narrowed. "And the data breach?" "Confirmed, sir. 6 independent stations have already begun broadcasting portions of the files. The Arcanian Council is demanding explanations, and 3 neutral planetary systems have issued formal protests. Damage control? Nemesis has implemented Protocol Omega. All officers with knowledge of Project Arcania are being recalled for debriefing." "But sir," Tell hesitated, gathering his courage, "Central Command is also calling for your immediate return." A flicker of something, fear, perhaps, crossed Harrow's face before his expression hardened again. "They'll need a scapegoat," he murmured, almost to himself. "What are your orders regarding Captain Voss and the Arcanian, sir?" Harrow turned to leave. "Find them, eliminate them, and erase all evidence they ever existed." As the general departed, Tell looked down at the small data chip hidden in his palm, the backup copy Rayan had given him before helping Voss escape. The truth about Arcania Prime, Admiral Corin Fail, and the Nemesis Network. Insurance, Rayhan had called it. Tell slipped the chip into his pocket. Perhaps someday, if Voss and Lyra returned, this small piece of truth would help finish what they had started. Across the vast expanse of space, aboard the tiny shuttle, Ragged Hope, Lyra watched Ryland sleeping in the co-pilot's chair. His features, typically tense and guarded, had softened in slumber. For the first time since being brought aboard the Maradex, as a gift, she allowed herself to truly study this Terran man who had risked everything for truth. She remembered the forests of Arcania Prime, luminescent blue vegetation reaching toward 3 moons. The sacred pools where her people communed with what Terrans dismissively called primitive technology. How could she explain to him that what his people saw as resources to be exploited, her people understood as the living consciousness of their world? Lyra gently adjusted the shuttle's course, avoiding a cluster of space debris. The slight movement caused Ryland to stir. "How long was I out?" he murmured, rubbing his eyes. 4 hours, she replied. "You needed the rest." He straightened in his seat, immediately checking the navigation systems. Always the soldier. "Any sign of pursuit?" "None. We've maintained radio silence as planned." A comfortable quiet settled between them, so different from the tense silence of their first days together. Finally, Ryland spoke again. "Where will we go, after we reach the Arcanian fleet?" Lyra considered the question. "There are outer colonies, beyond Terra Concord's influence, places where both our kinds live together." "Is that possible after everything that's happened?" She turned to face him fully. "What we did, exposing the truth, it's just the beginning. The real work comes after. Building something new from the ruins of what we thought we knew." Ryland nodded slowly. "I never expected to become a revolutionary. Nor I to trust a Terran captain," she countered with the ghost of a smile. The shuttle's communication system suddenly crackled to life, a signal from the approaching Arcanian fleet. They were being welcomed, not hunted. At least for now. As Ryland prepared to respond to the hail, Lyra placed her blue hand over his. In the soft glow of the instrument panel, their eyes met, gray meeting violet-flecked gray, and no words were needed. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the beginning of their journey. Not as captain and prisoner, not as Terran and Arcanian, but as 2 beings united by a simple, powerful truth. Sometimes, the strongest whispers echo louder than the loudest lies.